What's good, guys? This is Vahagraphy. I'm Vahagan, your rock and roll photographer. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys in detail my experience using 100% mirrorless at a wedding for the first time. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I'm a big user of DSLRs. And I've been using them ever since I started, digital photography. Big fan. I've talked about it on the channel. I still shoot weddings with a DSLR. However, this past weekend, if you haven't checked out my latest video, I'll put the link in the description and above. Check that out after watching this. I used 100% mirrorless for the first time. My Nikon Z9 and a Z6 with 5 Z lenses. The 24-70, 7200, 105 MC, 14 to 30, and 51.2. I did use all the lenses and all Z lenses. I'm going to talk to you guys in detail my thoughts and my observations, how it felt using mirrorless first time leaving the DSLRs at home. All right, so here we go. Number one, and this stuck out to me. I think this was the biggest thing that stuck out to me, is battery life. Okay, coming from a DSLR, battery life on a mirrorless camera is crucial. Okay, you're using the sensor when you're shooting, and when you're not shooting, when you're composing the shot, telling people what to do or whatnot in between shots, the camera is constantly working on a mirrorless camera versus a DSLR. So that means is juice, battery. It eats up battery a lot more than a DSLR. So I'm looking down and I'm saying, wow, I'm already, at 20%. And I just, I'm a fraction done. I'm a fraction in this wedding and I'm already down 20. I'm already have 20% left of my first battery on my Z9. Now, that's the one thing that really stuck out to me. Not used to that, right? Luckily, I have 3 batteries to work with on a Z9. So first things first, here's what you can do. Set your camera timer for the camera to shut off after a certain time. I usually set it for about 1 minute. And after the minute, it shuts off. And all I have to do is press, slightly press the shutter button and it, starts working again. That's one thing that stuck out to me is battery life. Don't go and shoot a wedding with 1 battery. That's the biggest mistake you can do. I have another body, which is the Z6, and I have multiple batteries on that one. But the good thing about the Nikon Z9, it's got the biggest, most robust battery available on mirrorless cameras. Similar to an R3, Canon R3, no other mirrorless camera on the market has a bit better battery than the Nikon Z9 or the R3. So that being said, still, you should have multiple batteries charged up, ready to go, because weddings are long. And, while you're working, you'll see that, your juice, your battery level is going lower and lower, and you need to replace the batteries. One other quick note, if you have about 40% left and you're out, let's say you're doing a park location photo shoot in between the wedding, and you don't want to take that extra battery, big mistake. Take that extra battery, because you never know. You don't want to run out to your car again and grab the battery. So grab an extra battery on location, because you just never know. And another thing I want to mention about the differences between DSLR and mirrorless when it comes to battery life, and I'll touch on this again in this video later, is if you're a hybrid shooter, if you're doing video, you know that video, consumes a lot of battery power. And more than anything, when you're doing video, it hogs up a lot of battery power. We'll get into that a little later. Number 2, quality of the lenses, quality of the glass. Guys, I'm a big fan of DSLR and older F-mount lenses from Nikon. However, the Z-mount lenses are superb. The quality, the sharpness are like no other. The sharpness I'm getting with these new modern era Z lenses is just, I'm blown away. and I've been taking pictures for decades, I am blown away by just how good these lenses are. Specifically, I'm in love with the Nikon Z24-70 2.8S lens. I think that lens is worth every penny, in my opinion. Night and day difference from a 24-70 f4. Let me tell you, night and day. If you think the 24-70 is it's good enough, I don't need to upgrade and pay another $1,500. They're both 24-70 lenses, and I don't shoot at f4. I mean, I don't shoot at 2.8, hardly ever at a wedding. Wrong. Night and day difference. The 24-70 2.8 is a powerhouse. Probably one of my favorite Z lenses right now. I'm in love with that lens. I was blown away. Again, guys, if you want to see samples of video and photography, check that video out that I mentioned earlier in this video. You want to check out that scene where I was taking video of the bride putting her makeup on, shot with the 24-70 at 2.8 wide open. This lens is awesome. All the lenses are awesome. The Z lenses are modern. They're great. I love my f-mount glass. I still love the look on certain lenses. However, we gotta face the music, guys. The newer lenses are just better. When you talk about CA, chromatic aberration, eliminates that focus breathing, just clarity, sharpness, the bokeh, the speed which it autofocuses. Everything about the modern Z glass is so much better than the f-mount when using it on a mirrorless camera. Sure, you could adapt using your f-mount glass. There's nothing wrong with that. I do it all the time. However, there's so many more features you could take advantage of while using native Z glass on your Z9 or Z6, Z7, whatever camera you have, like the adjustable ring. You can you could set aperture. You can do a whole host of features on that ring. Again, it's great. The Z lenses built for the mirrorless system, and like I said, pinpoint sharpness, the bokeh, the colors, the corners. There's nothing like it, and that's another thing I noticed when shooting 100% mirrorless at that wedding. Number 3, let's talk about video, filmmaking, wedding videography, whatever you shoot, or even if you're a photographer hired to do some hybrid shooting, photo and video, you're going to choose a mirrorless camera. I mean, hands down, the mirrorless system is the way to go when you're doing video. I don't care what anybody says. It just works better when I'm talking about Nikon now. There's no DSLR in the market today from Nikon that does excellent video when it comes to autofocus. It might do good video, but you need to manual focus the lens. Autofocus is really non-existent with DSLRs. There's exceptions to this rule. Canon has the 1DX Mark II and 3. They do an excellent job autofocusing with their dual pixel autofocus system. 5D Mark IV, even the 5D Mark III. However, Nikon does not have that in the DSLR system. Their autofocus is lacking. So if you are a hybrid shooter, video, mirrorless is the way to go. So what I noticed doing this job, photographing this job, I can rely on my video now. Yeah, I can shoot video. No problem. You flip the switch on the Z9 and you're doing video in seconds. There's no hesitation. The camera doesn't hesitate. So I have that in my hands, and I was doing that, and the videographers were looking at me like, hey man, you trying to take our jobs away? In a joking way. But that's the reality. That's the reality. Your hybrid shooter, your video, you're going to choose mirrorless. So doing this wedding 2-3 days ago, I had the whole capabilities of the video mode in my hands, and at the same time doubling as my main stills camera. So that was really cool. Again, guys, if you're a hybrid shooter, watch out for battery life, because even though the Z9 has a really good battery, like I said, you'll eat through the batteries if you are shooting. If you are shooting a lot and you're constantly doing stills and video, have a couple of batteries. Again, I'm not saying the Z9 battery is not good. It's probably the best battery out there for mirrorless camera to date, but watch out for that. All right, number 4, and this might sound a little controversial, but not really in my eyes. Build quality and tech. Build quality and tech. This is one thing that I noticed when shooting 100% mirrorless the other day and leaving my DSLRs at home. The build quality on mirrorless cameras is good, but it's not like the older D4s, D5s, D6s, D3s, D850s that we're used to. Sure, the body's great. The Z9's body is robust. It's built well, but it's not as good as the rugged DSLRs that I just mentioned earlier. Now, one thing you have to realize is that there's a lot of tech in this body. There's a lot of technical aspects in the Nikon Z9. And a lot of photographers have mentioned that the Z9 is a bigger body than most mirrorless cameras. However, if you look at the body itself, it's not that big. So they're cramming in so much tech in this body. Another thing that can contribute to a little lesser build quality than a D5 or D6 is cost factor. Companies are trying to cut cost. How to put a camera on the market with all this tech for less than a D6 or D5. So they might be, looking into cutting cost material wise. I've commented in the past that I think the D5 and D6, the buttons on those DSLRs are, high class, made of the utmost quality. They feel good when pressed. The Z9 is good, but it's not there when it comes to the quality of the buttons. When you press the top dial, like I said, it's good, but it's not like the D5 and D6 build quality, especially the D4. How long the Z9 will last, time will tell. I've seen countless stories online where people have already damaged the eye cup. People have cracked screens or this and that. And this is not a Nikon issue. This is the whole mirrorless industry issue where the bodies are not constructed like these older DSLRs are. And it's understandably so. I mean, like I said, trying to cut costs or whatnot. I wish that future generations of a flagship would have the higher quality dials and the feel of the camera. Again, guys, the Z9 is great, built well, but I think the DSLR was built a little better. Now, if somebody were to just make a bet and say, okay, let's drop the D4 and let's drop the Z9 2-3 feet and drop it to the floor, my money's on the D4 working after the fall. I don't know. I don't want to try it. But yeah, my money's on the older DSLRs. If the camera sustains a minor fall, I think the DSLR is built a little better. Maybe there's less tech. That's why, it's got a mirror. Like I said, the amount of tech in a mirrorless camera these days, I mentioned Z9, I mentioned Z6. This is all mirrorless cameras. There's a lot of tech involved in that small little body. So you want to avoid dropping or bumping into something. Some of these mirrorless cameras, not Nikon, but I think it's Sony or Fuji. When you look at the sensor, you can actually see the sensor floating in the housing, and that's scary. To me, it's like, wow, if this thing just takes a fall 2 feet from the chair, will it still work? Now, I've had a D850 fall from a chair 2 feet away, and it had the 7200 VR2 on, and the camera back focused after that. So I've had these issues with DSLRs as well. So yeah, guys, that's one thing to consider. I'm not saying that the Z9 or Z6 is built cheap. It's not. It's a great camera. That's one thing I noticed, that the build quality is good, but it's not like the D5 or D6. Number 5, and this is probably the most impactful thing I've noticed, and will affect me moving forward is the experience of using a Nikon Z9 at a wedding. It's hard to come back and use a DSLR after that. For many, many reasons. The autofocus, the eye detect, the corner-to-corner focus points, the quality of the image, the way the image renders, the Z lenses, the video capabilities, the viewfinder. It's a remarkable, awesome experience I've noticed using the Nikon Z9, going 100% mirrorless at a wedding for the first time. So going back and using a DSLR, hard to do. I'm probably gonna not retire my DSLRs, but for professional wedding work, this is it for me moving forward. I mean, I really cannot go back and shoot DSLRs after this. With all these features and all these capabilities in my hands, with these awesome lenses, it's hard to go back. So it's impactful for me, so that's one thing that I'm probably going to implement in my photography when photographing weddings or events. I'll probably end up moving 100% to mirrorless after the experience I had, 3 days ago at that wedding. So yeah. Number 6, autofocus. Now, when mirrorless came out, autofocus was an issue for users, but I think autofocus has caught up, and in some instances is even better than DSLRs now. When I was using the mirrorless, the Nikon Z9, it was amazing. I never had any failure. It never hunt for focus in a dark dance floor. It did great. And like I said before, the autofocus system is greatly improved. Now, the Z9, of course, has a better autofocus system, better processor than a Z6, my second body that I was using. That being said, autofocus was never an issue shooting this wedding. Like I said, I was shooting dark dance floors with no video light on, and it would just, obtain focus instantly. It was quick. There was no issues. Eye tracking was flawless. Never had any issues doing photo or video. And that's good to know, because in the past I would complain about the DSLR just acquiring focus in the dark right away and you knew what to expect. Now with the Nikon Z9, I know it's going to work. I know it's going to work just as good or even better with, these Z lenses than the DSLR. So I'm happy with that. And autofocus is there. Like I said, again, it's here. It works great. And I'm happy with that. Number 7, and this is piggybacking off what I was talking about earlier, is mirrorless still catching up, or has it caught up and surpassed DSLR? Depending on who you ask, my experience, I have the Nikon Z9. So my experience was good. I think that mirrorless has caught up with DSLR in certain aspects. When you're talking about autofocus, when you're talking about getting the job done, image quality, low light performance. It's caught up, and in some ways it's surpassed the DSLR. Now, in other ways, maybe you like the way the DSLR renders the image more than newer mirrorless cameras, and that could be your opinion. You might like the look of the DSLR more than the new mirrorless cameras. You might think the newer cameras look more digitized, and the DSLR has a more like a filmic kind of look to them. I agree somewhat. The D4, the D3X, it's like shooting film. Not quite, but for a digital camera, it looks really good. It looks analog to me. I can agree to some of that argument. However, I think mirrorless technology has caught up, and we're just getting started. It's going to get so good in the future that, I'm sorry to say this for all you DSLR shooters out there. If you haven't looked into switching, that's fine. But that's the future. We got to face the music. We gotta face the music. The newer, better lenses are available in the newer mount, the Z mount or the RF mount. So it is what it is. Adapt or die. I don't agree with that statement because you can still get the job done with the DSLR. And by the way, I love my DSLRs still, and I will still use them. However, going forward, shooting these weddings, I just gotten spoiled. Some of you were asking me, why did it take you so long? You owned the Z7, the Z9 for 6 months and owning the Z6 for longer than that. Why did it take you so long to switch and shoot your first wedding fully on a Z9? I'm a slow adapter, guys. What can I say? I'm used to what I'm used to. And, at a wedding, I can't second guess my gear. It has to work the way I know it works and I'm comfortable with. That is why it took me so long to shoot my first wedding on a mirrorless 100%. This is why this was such a big deal to me. It might not be a big deal to you. A camera's a camera. They both do the same things. If you know how to use a Z9 around your house, you would know how to shoot weddings. Yes, but there's no room for failure at weddings. There's no room to second guess. You can't just look at your screen and look at your buttons and the customer's not going to wait for you to figure it out. So there's no time to figure it out. So, I was a little anxious. I was a little nervous. I didn't have my trusty DSLRs with me. Some of you guys online were asking me, hey, what about that D4? What happened to the D4? Your trusty D4? Well, I was taking a break. So, yeah, guys, this was a big deal to me. This was a big deal to me, and this is why I asked in the community, wish me luck. And for me, it takes time for me to really rely on some new technology. Even though I had bought into it years back. I owned Sony's, I've owned Fuji's, I've owned Canon. I've owned them all, basically. I didn't keep them all, but I've owned them all. So I've been buying into mirrorless for years now. And now I can safely say right now to you guys that future weddings, future gigs, future events, 100% mirrorless. I'm sorry, that's the way I roll. I've invested in the lens lineup. You saw my video about a week ago. I got quite a few Z lenses, and it's time to use them. It's time to put them to good use. It's time to create imagery. As time progresses, as I shoot more events, I'm going to get better and better and rely more and more on the Z9 and the Z6. And who knows what camera I'll own in the future. So yeah, guys, this is me saying that events and weddings, I'm 100% mirrorless from now on. Yeah. But I'll still use a DSLR because I love the lenses that I have on F-mount, and I will still adapt F-mount glass to the Z9 as well. A few additional comments I want to share with you guys on my experience the other day shooting that wedding. I looked at the footage in the banquet hall when people were dancing. I was shooting 4K 120, and I noticed a lot of flicker on the screens on the stage. Those screens are very low quality screens. I guess it's something to do with the refresh rate. However, I kind of wish I can go back and work and use the Nikon Z9 anti-flicker feature that camera has. I didn't mess with it. I didn't turn it on. I didn't adjust the dial or the frequency. I wish I would have. However, there's always the future gigs and events that I'll bring you guys on this channel. I got a few questions asked in the comments in that wedding video I posted. One in particular from Z Wade, and Z Wade Photo asked me why I chose to take the 14-30 with me instead of the 14-24-28 Z lens that I also own. Well, Z Wade, that was solely on the space that I had in my camera bag. I knew that I needed something that's a little smaller. And also, I don't shoot that much super wide angle at weddings. It's not my lens of choice. There's some effects shots that I want to use during a wedding, but it hardly gets used. So, I didn't make that a priority for a super wide angle lens at a wedding. So that's why I took the 14-30. And also I want to say thank you to you guys in the comment section in that video. You guys said some kind words, some awesome, amazing, motivational comments you guys left. So thank you very much. Thank you for, watching my videos and commenting, because it's what it's all about. I would like to get your feedback and what you guys think of my content. That's super A+ in my opinion. Thank you guys. Anyway, my conclusion, mirrorless 100%. It was a success. I had a great time. My second shooter was great. Vache, he's also an amazing photographer. He's a Nikon shooter, Z7 II, Z6 II user. He was amazing. I love his style. I love his photography. Great photographer. He has a good eye. And thank you to him. Thank you for the lovely couple at the wedding. And and thank you to you guys for making this channel what it is and watching the content, commenting. If you like videos like this, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe to Vahagraphy, like the video, and hit the bell icon. You'll be notified when I upload new videos. Again, guys, thank you for watching my in-detailed observation using Z-mount Z9 Z6 at a wedding, leaving the DSLRs at home for the first time. Alright guys, go out there, shoot, have fun. If you're a wedding photographer, if you're portrait, landscape, real estate, sports, birder, whatever, go out there, take your cameras, and rock and roll. Thank you for watching. This is Vahagraphy. I'm Vahagan, your rock and roll photographer. We'll see you on the next video. Always, always, always rock and roll. Hey, what's good guys? Vahagan here from Vahagraphy. If you like more photography, rockin' videos like this, go ahead and click on the videos on the screen and subscribe to Vahagraphy and rock and roll.